I would like to welcome Marc Dörfer, the COO of PEM Motion USA.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure. I mean, I've been following what you guys have been doing for quite a while now, since my first connection to Sacramento. I think 2.5 years, 3 years ago now. I think it's tremendous what you guys have been doing, and yeah, it's a pleasure to be on this call today. I think we wanted to talk about some to-dos, and also I just wanted to give you a bit of maybe an opening discussion point on why ecosystems are so important for hardware innovation. And from that, I'd say feel free to ask in the chat at any point. I might collect some questions together and answer them in the end, or if it makes sense, I'll just jump in on any slide. But yeah, without any further ado, please continue with the slides. Hey, let's jump into this. So yeah, you asked me to bring some to-dos to the to-do session, obviously, and my to-dos are very much based on learnings from the past couple of months, but I think they have a very general and overall meaning. I think it's super important to celebrate every victory. I think we already touched on this earlier in our pre-talk. I think it's super important in these tough times. I know it's become a bit of a phrase, but they are. And I don't only mean this on a business level. I mean this on a very private level too. It's not always about achieving the next personal best in a run or whatever. It's about going out there, starting that run, and this can be transported to any kind of other activity in my perspective, and just helps you become a more positive person, focus on positive news rather than all the negative things you see out there. Celebrate those small victories that are out there, not only the victories you achieve, celebrate the victories your friends achieve, but also like community achieves. Just to become a more positive person. And in that, I think, well, I strongly believe that you become a more or a better entrepreneur in itself, which brings me to my next point. Build or rebuild or work on employee-focused businesses. I know everybody loves their KPIs and loves to chase numbers and loves to track things, but I think it's really important to see into your employees, to connect with them, to have a deep connection to them, to listen to them, not only to say, hey, thank you for your suggestion, please come back next year. It's more about sharing the appreciation, and especially what we've seen in or what I have experienced in these times of home office and people being stuck at home. It's driven creativity massively, because I don't know if people got bored and just thought I might just think out of the box, but once you start listening, there was so many great suggestions that actually helped us build or continue building our company, and continued revision of our vision, of our strategy, of our tactical focus, and on how we operated. And yeah, last but not least, you already put it up there, buy you guys some coffee. I think it's really amazing what you guys do. So keep you guys fueled by buying you guys some coffee. Those are my to-dos for today. So I think there are no questions regarding my to-dos or any discussions you want to kick off right here. We can continue into this small presentation I prepared for you. It's about successfully innovating in hardware. And when we think about innovation, I think if we think about friction-free innovation, about what we respectively see as innovation. Often we have this picture in our head of maybe Apple or something, and they started off in the garage and then grew to a multi-billion-dollar company. But hardware might not be that easy. So can you click on one forward? Yeah. So maybe back in that garage, It was more a one-man show or a small family. So I'm being very black and white here. So they had some Red Bull. Mommy brought you some pizza. Maybe not just pizza, but took care of you to get some more nutrients into you. You need a computer and a good idea, and you're good to go. But with hardware, it's a completely different set, especially at the beginning for hardware innovation, for startups especially. There are so many more things that come into consideration. I don't know, you get stuck with welding issues, materials, production processes. Your design is beautiful, but it's not manufacturable. You're very technically focused, but you have no idea how the business side of things work, or vice versa. And with hardware, especially at the beginning, quite early, you need a lot of money, because a lot of investors are at least have the perspective that they want to sit in a good, beautiful prototype. They want to see how it works, how everything goes, what the final product looks like. But to get to that stage of this adequate prototype, you already have to invest quite a bit of money. So whilst the garage and your mum bringing you some pizza, and again, please don't take this too serious, this is being very black and white, might be okay for software development. For hardware, you really need that extended family, and to get that extended family going, to have a proper party, that's what I want to talk about in the next couple of slides. That's something where PEM has been very invested in the last decade now, and what we're trying to bring to Sacramento together with the California Mobility Center. So let's have a look at what we need over the process. So when we typically go from an idea all the way to serious production, we run through a lot of stages in our process, and a lot of things come to our company on a very early stage, and then you have to take your product or your idea from one partner, from one co-founder to another, to an external partner here. You have another one here. You have a lot of friction losses, and even if you go to those centers which present you with solutions at hand, for example, startup incubators, accelerators, research centers who might bundle some of these points, at some stage you will have to transfer to the next stage again, and you will have friction losses along the way. It's going to cost you a lot of money. You only have a small team. You always have to bring out or source out a lot of things at the beginning. And if that changes hand a lot, it also can cost you not only speed, but also trust in the people you hand it out, and that's handed out to. And that's something that can bring you down in an early stage. So I like this saying, hardware is hard, developing hardware is even harder. I think that's very true. And that's why I think ecosystems, so this big family party, is so important to this. So let's go onto the next slide. So what do we need for this family party to work? I mean, we need a home or a location where we can throw the party, where we feel safe, where we know ourselves, there are other people we want to party with, we want to bring together. For a family party, obviously you need the permission by your parents. I don't want to say permission, but you'll need their support. You need their guideline on the way. Your siblings can't leave them out. A rich uncle who maybe has some money by the side and give you some pocket money, and then obviously there's no good party without your friends in the community. So what have we done back here in Aachen, Germany? Actually, we as PEM Motion are kind of like this. We're taking the part of the parents, so somebody to guide you, somebody who has made similar experiences, who can shape and mentor you. And for us, that was back in 2009. We started off with a street scooter project, which is actually a four-wheeled, fully electric vehicle, which we brought from a white piece of paper to series production within 4 years, and then sold it to the Deutsche Post DHL. And from that, we already learned quite a bit, because we were a startup, and we took hardware all the way through that with the help of universities, of public funding and everything. And we've been through that process. So we have our experts on board in all the different stations along the way. We have mentors, we have creatives, we have specialists that all come together in PEM Motion. PEM Motion actually is a consulting and engineering service provider. But we also see ourselves as like this focal point of an innovative ecosystem. So if we have a look at what we have created, and that brings us to the next slide, is that we've set a lot of children into the world. So as I mentioned earlier, we started off with a street scooter, but what we learned quite early is that especially back then, the OEMs in the future mobility space, for us it was a lot of electric mobility, they weren't really willing to risk a lot. So they didn't want to do these projects. They said, oh, it's too early, it's not the right time to go to the market at the moment. So what we did is we started creating some siblings for that street scooter. So we started founding new companies within our network. I founded new companies around PEM Motion because we had that experience in PEM Motion. We could nurture them as parents. So we had more and more siblings. They started working with each other. They learned from each other. And that's what this space should actually bring. So at the good party again, they would maybe come together. They would discuss ideas. They would discuss success stories, but also failures. And they can learn from each other. And not only that, they can start incorporating business models into each other's companies. So if you have a look here, maybe there's Velocity, which started as a station-based e-bike sharing service, and you have Use Mobility, who does like digital solutions for mobility, and they came together, and suddenly we had digital out-of-home solutions on the vehicles of Velocity or on Duck Train, which is an autonomous platooning service. So you have a train of little carts, and they follow the mother duck, so all the ducklings follow them around. And again, we started combining these with each other. So that's the idea of actually creating from the mother, creating the siblings, going out, broadening the family. And if we continue to the next slide, we also, we had to find our rich uncle. And at the beginning, he was quite far away because, as I said earlier, especially investors, they stay away from early stage hardware quite often because they can't see the actual product where you need the money for to actually get it going. So we started off and founded our own venture capital fund, 5P Capital, who focus on like this pre-seed and early stage funding to get you to that actually to this first seed rounds and everything. So we had our own, we created our own rich uncle, but that idea was actually picked up by Earlybird now at the beginning of this year, who merged with 5P Capital into a project, especially for these kind of ventures. And Earlybird is actually one of the top 5 venture capitalists here in Europe. And that rich uncle, I mean, you can't go without him. He's the one who understands your crazy ideas. He's the one who gives you that extra pocket money without your parents seeing. So that's him right there. And that brings us, I think, to the next slide of our community around it. And I mean, you need this broader network to actually get your idea out there. And we work very closely with the engineering university back here in Aachen to not only try to be first in market, but also be first in principle. So the basic research to bring that to our family, to our ecosystem on a very early stage. So we do a lot of combined events with them. We have so-called techathons where industry partners come in and do projects with students from the university to get a fresh look onto maybe old problems or new problems, to get that knowledge directly from the university. But again, also PEM Motion is not only a parent, but also a partner and a broader community, because we have these consultants on board. Shift to Start are like accelerator programs. So you don't want to rule out anything I said earlier, but you want to bring them together and make them interact with each other, and take that actually to a global stage. So for us with PEM, we have 5 locations over Germany. We have one major ramp-up factory, and I'll get to what that is in a second, here in Aachen, but we have another one in Helmond in the Netherlands. We have 2 offices in Mexico and another ramp-up factory there with a different focus. And we're very active with the CMC at the moment in Sacramento to get something similar going over there. So what a ramp-up factory is maybe a good transition to the next slide. That's actually our home. That's our place to enjoy the journey, enjoy the party. What we started off with was the Anlauffabrik, which translates to a ramp-up factory. And what that is, I like to call it an industrial tech shop or an industry-sized tech shop. So we only have like a small milling machine or a 3D printer where you can go and maybe build a small prototype, but you have like full industry-sized equipment there, state-of-the-art. It's a very innovative space. You can grow, and that is super important. So you can't only just build your first prototype, but you can take it through the first stages of different prototypes, function prototypes, ergonomic prototypes, design prototypes, all the way to small series, up to, we had another company we were invested in, Ego. They do a small 4-person electric vehicle. We had them actually ramp up their production up to, I think it was the first 100 or 150 vehicles in that ramp up factory. And what you do with this again is you don't only develop your product, you also develop your production process alongside. So something that is normally sequential, or in the traditional way, it's sequential. We parallelize that because we have everybody in-house. You have the facility, you have infrastructure, you have the consultants that help you with the production process. You have the engineers that can do the production engineering, that can do the product engineering. They're all together. They work together. And you learn from previous attempts because other startups have been through there. We have the E-Lab, which is more focused on specific components rather than the whole vehicle. And now we're planning to open the ramp-up factory equivalent in Sacramento actually by the end of the year. So we're through with the procurement process. We signed a lease with Depot Park for the next 3 years before we're trying to move to a big facility on Ramona Avenue. So yeah, it's also about connecting these spots globally and learning from each other on a global stage. So that ecosystem is not only a local thing, but it's also a global thing, and that's what I believe in. So yeah, this is just a bit of a sketch on how these systems grow, and it starts off like you have these individually required elements to actually get hardware innovation going, and then they come together maybe under like the aspect of an ecosystem, but they're still quite differentiated from each other. So maybe they're locally together now, but as soon as you have this need-based specific cooperation, so you actually are willing to break down some barriers and learn from each other, be mutually involved in this. This is where actual innovation starts going, and this transitions to like the agile aspect we know from software. You can then actually bring it to hardware development because you can go out there, you can try something, you can learn from somebody else, you can reiterate, you can you just have this space to grow, and that's what the sketch on the right is supposed to show. So yeah, that's my short introduction to what I have to say on ecosystems. And if you bring all that together, I think into one space, that gives you a massive advantage. That gives startups, but also corporate incubators and everything, a massive advantage to accelerate the time to market from any rough idea to an industrialized product. But that also gives you the possibility to try out that rough idea, to fail early, to learn early, because you are in that family space where it's allowed to fail, where it's welcome to fail, and it's quite cheap to fail, because you don't have those high initial investments of contracting people, of getting into or purchasing this very expensive equipment. You need to actually do these kind of things you have to do early. So we have a question right here. I'll get to that in a second once we come to the slide of the Innovation Center. The question is, what are some of the products and companies that that I anticipate will work out of the Innovation Center in Sacramento? I'll get to that in just a second. So this is just a short excerpt on some pictures from what we set up here in Aachen over the past decade. We started off with the ramp-up factory and the e-lab, and now we actually moved or opened the campus for sustainable mobility, which you see on the top at the beginning of this year, and brought everything together. So this is the infrastructure, but for example, in that building on the bottom right, it's not only PEM Motion that's in there, it's also Duck Train, Use Mobility, Velocity, Alternative Energy-Driven Solutions, who are working on a fuel cell solution. So they all came together. The university has parts in there, and we have hall space so that you can cooperate with each other. So the next step we actually took then, and I think that is something that is really important too, is we noticed that these startups, they don't only need help from us in terms of developing their product and their production process, especially at the beginning. There's so many things you don't actually want to take care of, like all these finances and marketing and how do I do all that. So we have the business solutions we offer to all the startups that come into the ecosystem. So we can actually innovate, or you can focus on innovation and don't have to take care of all the rest. And we move that through our whole ecosystem. So that's just an aspect to keep in mind. And this is just a short extract or example of our network at the moment. So yeah, you might think that's quite a bit to do, and it took us a decade to get this all going here in Germany. But yeah, it's actually, we're already on a very advanced stage with the California Mobility Center at the moment. Started off with a feasibility study at the beginning of last year. We got a lot of partners. These are just the main ones who have been really pushing this. Kudos to SMUD and Alan Orchard, who actually stepped forward and showed some massive leadership there and funding the first initiatives and getting this going, and actually put some money on the table. But anybody else on this slide is to thank for the efforts in the past 1.5 years, and actually brought us to the point that we can now think about launching by the end of this year, which is amazing. And what the CMC is, and this brings us to, I think the next slide is, in general, it brings all of what I said earlier, it brings it underneath of one roof, like an umbrella organization. But actually goes even one step further by locating in Sacramento. You can also have those certification services. You have that proximity to the policymakers, the regulatory authorities. We're going to have the hardware services in the ramp-up factory. We're going to have a digital section. We're going to have market launch services, helping startups actually go to the market. And a big part of it is also focused on the baseline, and that is actually the workforce for the future mobility, to educate them. And that's where we've been working very closely together with Sacramento State, UC Davis, Los Rios community colleges. So yeah, it's a one-stop shop to kind of take anything from your idea all the way to series production. We have the affiliated fund, which is the GSMF, the Global Strategic Mobility Fund, which startups can use but don't actually have to use if they come in. And if we go back to that question, what kind of companies do we anticipate working from the center? Anybody in I'm gonna, like, we're the mobility center, but I wouldn't want to narrow it down to that. It's about clean tech, it's about innovation, it has a focus towards accelerating hardware to market, but as you see, there's also the digital side to it. And I think it's a massive initiative for Sacramento, because if you look at innovation curves, most of you probably know the S form of a curve. I think for the mobility space, we're still really, really at the beginning. So if you remember where we were with phones a decade ago, where the new iPhone was mind blowing, and now it's, I mean, new iPhone 11 and the 10 are maybe not that far apart. I think we're quite at the beginning for this future mobility trend. We have so much technology coming from everywhere in the world, from the Valley, but hardware's has kind of stayed the same. And if we take this ecosystem a step further and actually look at it as being an ecologically friendly system, that's the next step to take. And these are like some points we started working on. We founded a organization called Engineers Are Going to Save the Planet, not because we think nobody else can, but I think engineers have been part of driving us to where we are right now, and we do have the toolkit to make change happen. And I'm going to finish off with that. So everybody in any part can start building ecosystems, can start building ecological systems. And yeah, maybe one last note. My associate Malte actually brought up to me that I like to say ecosystems rather than ecosystems. And I thought about that over the weekend, and I actually like both, because I think ecosystem fits quite well too, because if you bring something in here, it will echo out again. And I think that's something to take from this call. And yeah, and if we go to the slide Thomas already teased just now, I think it's amazing what CleanStart does. And I said as a to-do, buy those guys some coffee, and yeah, I'm going to follow up on that. So PEM Motion is going to sponsor a year worth of morning coffee for Thomas and the CleanStart team. So if you raise that glass in the morning and put some fuel in, think about us, and we're happy to join your ecosystem.